Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone around the world. I am Paul Sisler. I am the host of In the Moment, and we have a very special show today. Today is an exclusive interview with somebody that has fought the system, is trying to get rights for people, just a wonderful, brilliant human being. Welcome, Alice Little. How are you today?
I am doing so well. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from, and what do you do?
Well, I am from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I am a legal sex worker at the Chicken Ranch, located just outside of Pahrump, Nevada.
Excellent, excellent. And for a lot of people, they're going to say, "Okay, well, what inspired you to be a sex worker? I mean, do you just wake up one day and decide that's what I'm going to do, or, um, you know, give us some insight?"
Well, I think it's important to discuss the fact that sex work is kind of an umbrella term for many different types of professions. Long before I ever was working at the Chicken Ranch or the Moonlight Bunny Ranch, I was working as a BDSM educator. I initially found that path through my college roommates. Their parents owned a dungeon, and I ended up begging a job working at the front desk. I had a chance to attend a bunch of different classes, absorb a ton of education, and eventually went on to share that education with others. So I started traveling very regularly on the weekends, and it so happened at one of those events that a fellow educator shared her experience at one of the Nevada brothels. I looked it
Okay.
up online. I thought it was interesting. It's illegal, it's safe, there's STD and STI testing. And then I recalled that I had actually heard of this place years and years ago on this little show called HBO Cat House. Like the very
Hmm.
first instance of reality TV back in the day about a Nevada brothel. Well, I made the connection. I was like, you know what the heck? So I signed up for a 2-week tour to fly out to Nevada and give it a go. I loved it. I had an incredible time. I chose to extend my tour a couple of weeks and ended up renting a place in Nevada and moving all the way out there to work full time.
Oh, wow. Wow. All right. And do you love what you do?
Absolutely. It's an incredible job. It's an incredible profession. It gives me so many opportunities to connect with folks of a variety of backgrounds, have experience I never would have had the opportunity to otherwise. It's incredible.
Nice, nice. Now, I worked in the casino industry for like 20 years. Loved it. The last like 10 years of my casino experience and all that, I actually spent in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Hey,
Um,
that's great.
yes, I actually worked out at the last place I worked was the Green Valley Ranch Casino out at Henderson. So, but
Oh,
loved it, loved it. My wife and I loved Vegas. Um, Now, speaking of Vegas and Nevada, during COVID, the governor locked down everything for a while. And I know that when everything else started opening up, the brothels did not. And I remember that back in 2019, before my wife took ill, I was going to actually interview you about that and didn't get to it. I apologize. But here we are now. You sued the governor because he didn't open up the brothels. What happened there?
I did. I sued Governor Sisolak. I found it incredibly frustrating that the brothels were the single industry with no path forward and no options for opening. There were no solutions and no support offered by the government. My industry, specifically the independent contractors, the sex workers themselves, were excluded from Paycheck Protection Program because we're independent contractors. We were excluded from small business loans, so we got none of the benefits of that. We were absolutely on our own to come up with alternative income sources for months and months and months and months and months. Months And months on end, the casinos were open with smoking and drinking before there was anything even mentioned or considered about the Nevada brothels. Are you kidding me? That's a joke. And so I decided to take matters into my own hands and sue the governor of Nevada personally. Unfortunately, I was not successful due to the fact that I am an independent contractor, not a Nevada brothel owner. Essentially, the case boiled down to the fact that I owned no real property that was closed, in the sense that I did not own my own physical work location and was only contracted to the brothel. So technically, I was not closed, you see, just the brothel was closed. Essentially, they said by closing the brothel, no harm was done to me. Nothing actually affected me when that happened, despite the fact that the only money making enterprise within the Nevada brothel system are the Nevada brothel workers, the sex workers, with the occasional drink and alcoholic beverage, I suppose. But let's be real, that certainly isn't paying for the entirety of a brothel now, is it?
Exactly. And again, this is where government puts property rights above human rights again, and obviously none of them received unemployment or anything like that either, did they?
Of
Now,
course not. We were not employees. You see, it's easier to classify Nevada brothel workers, the sex workers, as independent contractors.
okay. Now, I wonder how this is going to affect with the whole gig thing, like with what Biden is trying to do with Lyft drivers, Uber drivers, stuff like that. Now, I wonder how that's going to affect you, if that's going to help you. So,
You said the magic words on the nose. It is kind of a wait and see scenario, particularly as the language around being an independent contractor is further clarified and certain stipulations in law do have to be abided by. I mean, they are law.
yes, yes. Now, if one of the brothels would have stood up and stood behind you and helped you with the lawsuit, would that have changed the outcome?
More than likely, yes, due to the fact that they have that real property right. They own that physical location. They absolutely could have. I think it's very important that we discuss something here that many people are not aware of when it comes to the Nevada brothels. You see, a Nevada brothel is not one business. A Nevada brothel is actually many businesses. They very strategically have coordinated themselves in a way that they do not operate entirely under the auspices of a brothel. They have a back end business, they have a property holding business, they have a employee business, whatever it so may be, a restaurant business, and they have these things divided up and subcategorized. Not all of
Okay.
those different businesses were ineligible for financial support. In fact, many of those businesses did qualify for financial support. And so, unlike the independent contractors, the sex
Mhm.
workers, the real property owners, the Nevada brothel owners, did receive financial benefit from the government throughout the closure, much of which was even then forgiven through the Paycheck Protection Program, small business loans, etc. So they were given free money while sex workers were forced to do whatever it took to make ends meet.
Wow. So again, they had a backdoor entrance that they didn't have to worry about. So again, property before human rights. They didn't care about the people that made them who they are. All they cared about was, hey, I got this backdoor business. I can now get benefits from the government. I don't have to worry about losing anything. And hey, when it starts back up, oh, the girls, they'll come back. So yeah, again, that male mentality. No, I get it. I get it. Um, so now you the workers don't have health benefits either, do you?
No, We are independent contractors. So if
Right.
we want to obtain insurance, we're required to reach out to the health marketplace, which is in of itself a nightmare to navigate based off of what particular state you're in order to receive your healthcare benefits. It's important also to note that we're required to travel to Nevada for work, and many folks have out of state healthcare. So let's say you fall ill while in Nevada and your Colorado insurance is from out of state. It's not going to offer full benefits for you at your workplace. And so it's also important to note that additional expense and challenge, plus the fact that even if you do have your own private healthcare insurance, you still cannot use that for your medical testing at the brothels. You still have to pay that every week out of pocket.
Yes. Okay. Now, I also know that you have a friend right now, and the only reason why I'm bringing this up is that I just in January lost my wife to breast cancer, and I know how expensive it can get. I know when you're working with state insurance and you have to deal with calling, your insurance company, your insurance provider, to make sure that this prescription, this procedure, everything is covered, while slowly cancer is eating away at you. And it's a race against time. And yet it can be just a horrible experience. You have a friend that is a sex worker that has breast cancer.
Yes, yes. My colleague and my dear friend, Jenna May, she works with me at the Chicken Ranch. And much like every other one of my colleagues, is an independent contractor. Unfortunately, breast cancer is not just life and health impacting, but it's also career impacting. When you're a sex worker, I mean, that's a significant part of your job is your physical health and well-being and the ability to work in that way. So not only does she have to overcome the financial challenge that comes with all the medical bills, but she's also looking at that loss of income too. And so anyone who's able to please throw a few dollars into her little GoFundMe. We're trying to raise some money to help offset some of those expenses for her. And then a bunch of us have collaborated to pull together some raffle gifts. So for each one of the donations that you make, it translates into raffle tickets. And we've got everything from like a calendar to a little signed wooden paddle, all sorts of goodies.
Okay. Yes. And then, of course, let's say, they have to take her breast. Then there's going to be reconstruction surgery. And again, depending upon the insurance, depending upon whether or not that's even covered, that's going to have an impact, because if it doesn't cover reconstructive, then obviously she can't go back to work in the profession that she was doing. She's now going to have to re-educate or find something else. And again, people are not being taken care of over property. Property always comes first. So again, this is part of our battles. Now, I noticed in our conversation and all that the other day, we were talking about universal basic income. We were talking
Yes.
about, yes. And my friend on here, revolutionary thinking and all that, he said, hello, Alice. Hi, Alice. He's a real good friend of mine. That's Ariel. He's got a show with Bryce and Asia called The Uninvited. And
Oh,
basically,
very cool.
yes. And the uninvited are people that have the answers and solutions to a lot of things, but yet we're not getting invited by the media to come out and talk about it because they don't want to fix the problems. Okay.
Correct.
So I told him that you've met Andrew Yang.
Oh, yes, yes. At an event once. It was really cool.
Yes, yes. Yes, radio uninvited. I got you, Ariel. Yes. Um, let's see. And Bryce has got a question here, and then I'm going to go into the UBI stuff with you and the universal health care. Bryce has a question. Bryce is part of the uninvited also. What is the most important single federal policy or law change that would benefit the sex work industry? Well, besides decriminalizing it and legalizing it.
Other than those two, the overturn of SESTA FOSTA would be an immediate policy change that would have real world impact and benefit for sex workers and benefit for folks that have been sex trafficked. Let's be very clear here. When SESTA and FOSTA, the Sex Trafficking Act, and FOSTA, the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act, came into play, it essentially closed a lot of the online listing websites that sex workers would be able to use to pre-screen clients. And it also closed a lot of the blacklist websites. So a lot of the independent sex workers were removed from any online capacity to keep themselves safe. It actually made sex work statistically more dangerous. It literally murdered people, not to mention that it pushed actual trafficking victims further underground and farther from actual help. It caused far, far more harm than any actual good.
Yes, yes. And I'm going to have to read more into that. I'm not as well. I'm very well read in a lot of law, and I'm not educated in that aspect. So later on, I'm going to have you DM those things to me so I can do more research into them, so I have a better understanding and have more statistics to go on with that. Universal basic income. Now, if we would have had universal basic income during the pandemic and the shutdown of the brothels, that would have helped a lot of people, wouldn't it?
Oh, 100% it would. Something like that would have been the cushion by which people would have been able to fall back on rather than having to fall back and have zero support at all. It would have been so incredibly beneficial to fill the financial gap and meet the immediate needs of the general public. Not just sex workers, but sex workers in particular would have seen like so much value from that and so much help from it. Within 24 hours, we were told that we had to close our businesses, pack up all of our belongings that were in Nevada, and for those that lived out of state, get a ticket home and fly back now during the midst of a global pandemic with a last minute ticket, essentially. Your business is closed. You have to go home, and we don't know when we will reopen again. At the time, it was maybe in 2 weeks, maybe if we're lucky.
Wow.
2 years later.
Wow. Is that how long it took to reopen the brothels? 2 years?
Just about, yeah. We were the very last thing to reopen.
Oh my goodness.
Other than Japan. I mean, I suppose Japan is the last thing to open.
All right. So that means obviously, yes, you're for a universal basic income. How about universal health care? Obviously.
Oh, without a doubt. That's an easy one. Absolutely, yes. And to go along with that, too, many people say, well, if we have that kind of healthcare availability, we don't have the providers to meet the increase in need. Yeah, duh, that's part of the problem. We need to increase the number of providers that we have in this company by offering universal basic education so we can get more doctors to take care of our people. So this way, our average age isn't going down, but stabilizes and increases again. I mean, it's very, very solvable. We just have to actually invest in the people of this country instead of infrastructure, mega corporations, and mega billionaires.
Yes, yes. It's kind of funny and all that because you threw out the last one, universal education. I address all three of those things in my book: universal education, universal healthcare, and universal basic income. All three of those things are definitely needed. And it can be done. It can be done. Now, with the current taxation system that we have, our country would go bankrupt. We would have to continually print money. But there is a taxation system that I've written about in my book that would actually, a lot of people, they don't understand that. They look at the GDP, it says $20 trillion a year. It's a lie because that doesn't include business to business transactions. Okay. We actually have over $100 trillion in transactions every year in this country. That doesn't include the New York Stock Exchange or the Chicago Board of Trade. All right. Now, if we were able to tax transactions at 10%, eliminate the income tax, our country could bring in, instead of 3 to 4 trillion, 20 to 30 trillion, which means we can afford universal basic income, universal health care, universal education, and still have double the amount of money we had to begin with for all the other things that they want to cover, which I include a daycare and a retirement at 50. So, and that retirement at 50 doesn't mean you have to quit working. You can keep working at 50. You just simply start receiving it, period. You hit 50, you receive this. So basically, instead of waiting until you're 70 to get the best Social Security benefits from what you've paid into, you just simply start getting it at age 50, and you can keep working and stockpile it, whatever you want, but it will continue to come until the day you die. There you go. So, do you like those ideas there?
Yeah. I mean, they're all things that are like equalizers. They level out the playing field. They make it so that those that are not born into extremely wealthy families have some sort of cushion to fall back on. We pride ourselves on being this country of entrepreneurship and taking life by the horns and pursuing our destiny. But the reality is we don't have any sort of like social safety net to catch people to offer that sort of support. The people that you see becoming entrepreneurs are already coming from exceptionally wealthy families that they can take these massive loans from, that have this social support to fall back on, that know at the end of the day they're not going to go homeless if their idea fails. If we want to see more entrepreneurship, education, opportunities, and just growth in this country by just addressing the basic human needs, we can then move away from just addressing needs into now societal wants and desires. And who knows, maybe we'll actually get our flying cars someday.
Yes.
That'd be fun.
Yes, I can't wait for a flying car.
It'd be great. It would be so great if we could stop stressing about healthcare and people dying, and we could talk about what cool technology and how we need to legislate around how do we all get to have a flying car. Like, can we get to that point, please?
Yes. Now, I want to go back into the sex industry, okay? Now, I know that when I wrote my book, I did a lot of research, especially in relation to criminality, people cheating, how the people would associate that if we were to decriminalize and legalize sex work, that it's going to encourage people to cheat on their spouses and their boyfriends and their girlfriends and whatever the case is. Now, I know that a cheater is a cheater, period. Doesn't matter if there's a brothel, a hooker, a person that they can meet at the bar, a person at work, whatever the case is. A cheater is a cheater. So a cheater is going to cheat regardless whether prostitution is legal or not, whether sex work is legal or not. They are going to cheat. And then there's the whole, it goes against religious morals. I believe Jesus is the one that said, "He who is free from sin may throw the first stones," as he was saving a prostitute, Mary Magdalene. So again, we have our hippie Jesuses, and I guess we have our Republican Jesuses. Decriminalizing sex work. Are you for it in all 50 states? And do you think it would help the country or hurt the country?
I'm for it globally, let alone all 50 states. We need to have decriminalization if we are ever going to treat sex workers with civility in this country. That's like the minimum thing that we need to do, and that needs to happen as soon as possible. It would be tremendously beneficial to our country, simply in the instance of freeing up our police force to actually pursue sex trafficking. Instead, they do these sex stings where they end up arresting 27 people. 10 of them are purchasers, 10 of them are consensual sex workers, 5 of them were drivers, and then there was maybe one instance of someone who was an underage minor. And yet they will call the entire thing, all these various instances, a sex trafficking win because of that one person. That one isolated hotel arrest that they made with the underage person will justify them arresting 25 consenting adults and putting them behind bars. And for why?
I know. It goes back to George Carlin. I love George Carlin. George Carlin pointed it out that, sex is the only thing that you can do for free. And once you pay for it, it's a crime. What else is there out there that you pay for that is a crime that isn't a crime if you do it for free? Nothing but sex. Sex. It's been Sex has been so demonized in so many ways. I have a friend, Sharky Ray, and she has a co-host, Roxy, that do sex health chats and on Twitter Spaces. So for those that are on Twitter Spaces, check out at Sharky Ray and at Hope Patrol. Um, they do sex chats, and it's sex health. I'm sorry, sex health chats, and they talk about a lot of things. They clarify uh, biological sex versus gender, which gender is a social construct, and a lot of people get upset. Your gender is what you're born. No, no, no. Your gender is not what you're born. Your sex is what you're born. Male, female, or intersex. And then outside of that, the gender is a social construct of how we associate people are. Like myself, I'm pansexual. Um, there's a lot of issues with that, and there's a lot of belief, especially coming from the right, that if you don't believe in God and you get all caught up in this, it goes against morals. When the reality is if you're two consenting adults, then where is the immoral act?
Mm-hmm. And the reality is there isn't one. It's two consenting adults. And it's the world's oldest profession. It's written about in the oldest existing code of law, Hammurabi's code. It's something that has been with us since the dawn of human civilization, has traveled with us to every single continent, through every civilization throughout time. We have reference points of sex work and courtesans and the various folks that would take care of the king's mistress, all these various forms of
Mm-hmm.
sex work throughout history. It's there, it's
Yes.
well documented. It's about time that we recognize it and treat it like everything else in society. Accept it.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. That's one of the things that they have these things called. Oh God, I can't even think. Victimless crimes. Okay.
Yes.
And the three victimless crimes that is the primary study when you take criminal justice classes, any jurisprudence classes, is prostitution, gambling, and drugs. Okay, because it's about consensual um, acceptance. And when you have consenting adults partaking in these things, no one's being harmed except possibly the person themselves. Okay. Whereas, like with drugs, depending upon the drug, you could be harming yourself. The sex, you'd have to get pretty wild to harm yourself. Gambling is you could financially harm yourself. Well, make note that, like, for the longest time in Vegas and then New Jersey, gambling was legal. And I'm a product of riverboat gambling, which started
Yeah.
up in Davenport, Iowa, with the President Riverboat Casino. And that's how I got into the casino industry, riverboat gambling, when it started. And I moved around with a lot of the casinos as they opened up. And that's, why I was in the casino industry for 20 plus years. That was considered a victimless crime, and they decriminalized it in a lot of states and made it acceptable. Now there's casinos all over this country. Okay.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. And then it's regulated, it's monitored, that the
yes.
odds are set the way that they're supposed to. In the instance of, say, horse racing, which is oftentimes something that people are casting bet on. Well, when
Yes.
it's monitored and legislated, we're able to reduce the amount of harm that's caused by it. Like all things, when we take it out of the shadows and actually look at it for what it really is and address the needs of the industry, everyone
Mhm.
wins, everyone benefits, and harm is overall reduced.
Right. Well, and just like drugs, okay, we have all these drugs that are criminalized that hold federal sentences on a lot of them if you get caught with them.
Ridiculous.
Whereas here I am, I'm vaping tobacco. Okay. I've been smoking since I was a young child. And again, um, I when I was 10, 12 years old, I could go into the bar, throw 75 cents in the cigarette machine, and nobody said a word. I'd walk out with a pack of cigarettes. Okay. And again, nicotine is a drug. Then you have alcohol, again, another drug regulated by the government. And now we're starting to see states, they are legalizing marijuana. We have like Oregon that has opened up the door to mushrooms and
Mhm.
other forms of drugs, um, and they are regulating it. President Biden just announced that everyone on a federal simple marijuana possession is now going to get a pardon, and he wants the government to reevaluate the Controlled Substances Act, where marijuana is a Schedule One. So there's the step in the direction to decriminalize and legalize marijuana. So we need to do that with all controlled substances. They all need to be reevaluated and either decriminalized for recreational or medicinal purposes. Same thing with sex work. It needs to
Yes.
be decriminalized and regulated so that people can be, healthy and stuff. And one of your shows, you talked about sex work and all the things that you guys do to make sure that it's safe. Can you tell people more about that?
Yes. So within the Nevada brothel system, it's important to notate the fact that we're not looking to prevent ourselves from harm from our guests. My guests have never done anything to ever put me in danger, make me feel in danger, or cause me harm. We do, however, still have a safety gate around the property where folks are buzzed in and out, so we always know who is on the property at all times. The main reason why this exists is so we can check IDs and make sure that everyone entering the property is of legal age. Of course, for that particular county, the age to enter a Nevada brothel is 21. In other counties, it's 18. It's a county by county set of legislation, not a statewide legislation. So it depends on location, of course. Additionally, we're going to have a panic button in every room. It's somewhere in the room. I know where it is. My colleagues know where it is. More often than not, this gets used in case of medical emergency. Somebody has an issue with let's say, anaphylactic shock from cross contamination with a food allergy. They're stung by a bee. Like, it's very, very. Actually, I don't know of any time a panic button has been used in a case of panic. I know of a few instances where they've been hit by accident, where somebody thought it was like a drink button. Like you hit the thing to order your drink, you like press and hold and try to talk into a little speaker. No, it's not for that. No. Pro tip, by the way, don't press random buttons at brothels. Just pro tip, friends, don't do that. You don't know what that button does. It might call somebody who you don't want to call, and it probably doesn't order drinks on demand. Speaking of drinks, the bar is controlled. Guests are not bringing outside alcohol. They do keep an eye on what's being consumed, both by the ladies as well as the guests. Nobody is getting drunkenly intoxicated. That's not part of the brothel experience, is having a drunken rager. No, you will be kicked out if you are drunk. That's what the staff is there for. All the locations have support staff, which are there. They handle the financial transactions. If we need any support for any which reason, they are there in order to help us. Additionally, on the back end, we have things like full background checks for the ladies as well as the staff. We have to undergo FBI level fingerprinting every quarter. We have to relicense every single quarter, which is a little bit excessive in my opinion. I think it should be yearly, but got to get that money. So quarterly
Right.
licensing that we have to pay for, so in which you have to undergo this whole thorough process, register, fill out all this information. It's incredibly extensive. Like, this is done at the sheriff's office by the sheriff's office. This isn't
Wow.
happening at the brothel. This is at the sheriff's office. So, I mean, any claims that someone's being trafficked through the brothel, okay, it's you and the sheriff in their back room. if you don't want to be there, just go. Just say, I don't want to be here. Like, no one's stopping you. No one's locking you in. Like,
Right. See,
it
now
blows my mind.
I didn't know you were being licensed every quarter.
Oh,
Me,
yeah. Oh,
see, now,
every quarter.
wow. See, now I was in the casinos and was in charge of millions upon millions of dollars, and I only had to license for the job and maybe get reevaluated once a year.
Oh, yeah.
So,
And that's just the background test. That's not even the every 7 to 10 day STD and STI testing that, of course, we have to pay for out of pocket as independent contractors.
oh wow, wow,
Also, that too. We are more tested than porn stars, and porn stars are having routine unprotected sex with multiple partners. They're every 14 days. Our licenses are every 7 to 10 days, depending on county, location, length of tour, etc.
wow. Okay, I thought I personally thought that the brothels covered that expense, so
No.
they don't. Wow,
Oh, also,
wow,
we pay for our own supplies: condoms, dental dams, lube, toys, lingerie, work outfits, heels, makeup. Yeah, we pay for everything. The brothel
wow,
supplies a location for us to work, and then we go from there. I mean, I even purchased my own bedding because I didn't really care for the set that the room came with.
wow. So it's not cheap being a
No.
sex worker.
No, God, no. There's a certain amount of financial privilege you have to have simply to enter the Nevada brothel industry, not to mention a certain amount of lifestyle privilege that you have to have in order to enter the Nevada brothel industry. It would be extremely challenging if you were a single mother to enter into this world. You're required to travel to a different state, pay all these expenses, a lot of which are coming out up front. You have to have the clothing and the hair and the makeup and the heels and the toys and the. It's a lot.
Wow, wow. I have learned something new again. I love it. Yeah, I did not know this. I did not know this. I thought the brothels actually covered part of this.
Oh, no. Oh, also, we pay room and board to the brothel in addition to 50% of all of our bookings and tips.
Wow. So again, property before human rights. So the brothels are making it hand over fist, and you are doing all the work, and you are coming out of pocket with everything. You have to cover your own medical, your own health, your own um, entertainment devices, your own. Oh my God! Oh my God! And
My
then
own
you have
business
to pay.
license, transportation to and from the ranch, a flight to the ranch because it's out of state. So I have to fly out of state for all this. Uh, yeah. I mean, it really is just an incredible expense, and people grossly underestimate it.
Wow. Wow. You know, if I actually do get elected in 2026 as governor to California, I'm going to be changing a lot of these laws. And when I do, you're going to be one of the first people that I call to help write the legislation to make sure that sex workers aren't having to come out of pocket for this stuff. Wow. Wow. I'm sitting here
Yeah.
just, man. I mean, wow. So,
And as a legal sex worker, let's be very, very clear here. I am at the very tippy top of the privileged folk in my industry. I am of the most successful folks in the most privileged part of the industry. Like, I get to work legally. That is a privilege beyond privilege for anybody that falls under the sex work umbrella. Like, that's a privilege. Most people don't get that opportunity. And I'm like incredibly successful. And so like I still have to acknowledge the fact that it is very expensive to do this. What about everybody else?
that's what I'm thinking. Because I mean, I know you are like the premier in the United States. Okay. I mean,
Thank you.
you, yes. I mean, I'm honored to have you here. I mean, you are, I've read a lot on you. You're like the highest paid, you're one of the most known. Um,
And it's not something I say to be like a braggy thing.
right.
Like a lot of people get that confused. No, it's like a recognition of privilege and to clarify the viewpoint that I have and the perspective I have. Like I am a very successful person. I am the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. I am the luckiest of the lucky and the most privileged of the privileged. And so I want to use that point of privilege to advocate for literally everybody else and recognize the fact that, well, I've overcome lots of challenges and I've seen financial success. At the same time, I was amongst the folks that were affected that had their bank account closed by Wells Fargo.
Yes, tell me more about that. Let
Yes,
people know more about this because I
yes,
know I saw
myself.
a lot of strippers were having this issue, sex workers, just the
Yep,
industry.
yep. Folks that were even retired for 30 years had their accounts closed by Wells Fargo with no explanation and just a letter sent.
And what
Really,
was
just that. No info given, just go somewhere
right?
else.
What was the premise of doing it to begin with? I mean, was there ever a reasoning behind why they were doing this to people engaged in different forms of the sex industry?
No. Why would
Wow.
they? Let's be very clear here too. Let's make it crazier. Let's make it crazier. I started working in the industry back at a different company than I worked for now. I was working at the time for the Bunny Ranch and the Bunny Ranch family of brothels. And at that time, Wells Fargo would send in a local representative from the Carson City Wells Fargo Bank into the brothels to help us set up our accounts, take our deposits, and specifically do business with the Nevada brothels. And at some point in time, with no announcement or notification, they decided to go from, yes, we want your money, to giving us the finger. They
Wow.
solicited us. They came to us. I didn't even go to them.
Wow. 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 Man, again, I'm dumbfounded. I'm just like, wow. And I'm sure, and again, with you know being up there at the top, you're able to make it through all of these hurdles that have been put before you. How many, if you could give a percentage or have an idea of a percentage of how many women in this industry through the pandemic, through the Wells Fargo shutdown, actually were no longer able to continue in this profession? I mean, did it affect a small percentage, like maybe 10%, or a large percentage, like half of you?
We
Um,
don't know. We don't know. We don't have exact statistics or specifications. It's not like we're able to have databases or open communication anymore. That all went away with SESTA and FOSTA. Any open lines of communication, databases that we had for connection and documenting these types of harms, no, we don't even have the ability to communicate to have exact numbers anymore. Instead, it's very, very much so like through Twitter in real time, trying to coordinate information in very informal ways, because the second it becomes formalized, it becomes too much of a challenge and therefore becomes targeted.
wow.
It
I
sounds
am
crazy, but
no,
unfortunately, it is a reality, much like Epstein's Island. That was real, folks. There's some real crazy things that exist in this world. So, like, suspend your disbelief for a second here and put yourself into the reality of this very small niche brothel industry that only exists in one state out of the 50 in select counties. There's like 20 of these places. So it is the wild, 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 wild west. The laws were written in 1970 and haven't been updated since. In 2017, the Nevada government said that we need to do a study of the industry and take a look at these laws and perhaps update them and bring them into the modern day. Despite the fact that they made this decision and even set aside an operating budget and an entire planning committee, they never took a single step forward to pursuing the Nevada brothel study and have never reopened it since. The senator
Wow.
who initially pursued it, I'm forgetting her name. She's that level of uninvolved now. She just did not care at all. She used us as a political pawn to be like, I want to help sex workers. And the second it was no longer convenient or easy, she turned her back.
Wow. And Alice, I promise you, I am going to dig into this a lot more. And now that I didn't realize how bad and how dark things were, and I definitely this is what I do. This is what I do. I check into this stuff. I find out. I'm just something's got to be done because again, this is the
Yeah.
kind of things I'm fighting for equal rights for everyone, women's rights, civil rights, and it's just again, rights are being violated here severely, and something needs to be done about that. We have a question from Bryce. What's the most common misperception about sex workers? That's a good question.
Ooh, that's an easy one. That we're stupid. People really think that our eyes are shut to the realities of the way that we are treated and perceived and legislated against by society. People really don't think that we are aware of all of these microaggressions and the way that society is choosing to handle this. They really think that we have no idea at all and we're just stupid girls who decided to take the easy way through life. This is easily one of the most challenging careers, and most people don't choose to jump into a highly stigmatized profession, assign their name and face to it, and then establish themselves as a voice of authority in that space unless they genuinely are interested in the human connection and that as a career field. Like most people choose not to do those types of things. It's not the easy way out. It's the hard way forward, if anything.
It is. It is. And again, I'm being educated here and I'm loving it. Now I have to dig in more. Beaver Duck asks, why do people believe all sex workers are bad?
Simple, because they believe sex is bad. People have a preconceived
Bingo.
notion about what sex is and who sex should happen between. And so anybody that does not fall under the title and auspice of husband and wife that's having sex, bad person. Bad, bad, bad person. So therefore, sex workers are often perceived by general society as being bad because in this country, morality is oftentimes informed by religion, despite the fact that the church and the state are
Right.
supposed to be separate. We know that's not the case, and a lot of the church's religious views have infiltrated American mainstream thoughts.
Yes, definitely. Purity culture seems to be a huge factor. Yes, it
Yes,
is. It is.
yes. And it's toxic, it's problematic, and it specifically seeks to devalue women and strip rights away from women inch by inch by inch because purity isn't a concept that's typically assigned to the man. That's a concept that's typically assigned to the woman, female, girl, whatever it so may be, whatever her social role or age is. She's the one who's supposed to be pure. That's the societal value there because frankly speaking, she has the value as the birth giver, the womb. That's
Right.
really the originating factor there is that it's keeping the bloodlines pure. It's knowing that the inheritance is safe, that the child is actually from that specific father. And where does that come from? Oh, right, religious
Yes.
information. Like it's
Yes.
it's all about religion and control.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And there's a lot of other things that fall under, that, you're morally wrong if you don't follow these guidelines set by the alt right, like you're saying. I'm an atheist, okay? I'm an atheist because I read the Bible. I've read the Quran, the Torah. I've dug into religion. I know religion very well because I wanted to believe in a God. And well, guess what? I read the books. I am deemed as immoral because I'm an atheist. And of course, I recently came out as a pansexual, and now I'm immoral because I'm a pansexual, you know. Um, Yet here I am fighting for everybody's rights, fighting for equality and stuff like that. And we have people on the right that are trying to take away those rights. You got the Supreme Court that just overturned Roe v. Wade and made women
Yep.
into a vessel that have no rights over bodily autonomy. And again, I'm the bad guy. You're the bad woman. You're the, we're the bad people. We're the immoral people because we don't believe in a spook up in the air that says you have to follow these rules. Oh, no, I don't have to follow those rules. And I'm not going to hate on somebody because it doesn't line up with what, you know, I believe or what somebody else wants to believe. I love everybody, even those that I don't agree with, even politically or religiously, because I believe in everybody has the right to believe into the things that they want to believe in, as long as they don't go shoving it down everybody else's throat. Hey, that's your right. That's your right. I think that sex work is a great thing. I myself, who was married in a wonderful relationship for 23 years with my wife, um, who just passed away. I am not interested in a relationship right now. And for me, if sex work was legal right here in California where I'm at, I would be going to a brothel because I don't want to work on a relationship. I don't want to work on, getting to know somebody and, worried that, I don't want to worry about somebody falling in love with me when I don't want to fall in love. I still love my wife. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
married in my heart. So for me, it would be strictly I want someone that can take care of my other needs and not have guilt that, they might be more interested because it's a financial transaction. And you
Yeah.
and I discussed this a little bit, and you were talking about other instances where sex work is needed.
Yes, even beyond the fact that I think that all folks, as a basic human right, should have the ability to get their needs met, including their intimate needs. All people, some folks are going to have a harder time getting their intimate needs met in traditional dating society. Disabled folks, wheelchair users, folks with cerebral palsy, folks with autism, autistic folks. God, I mean, holy crap! Like it, it like yeah, it blows my mind that people carry prejudices in their heart, or they'll be like, oh, I don't understand why it's so hard for everybody to find a girlfriend or a boyfriend. And be like, okay, how many people in a wheelchair have you dated? Ask yourself that question right now. How many disabled people have you dated? How many autistic people have you dated? Like, hi, you're
Exactly.
part of the problem there. Like internal societal prejudice. It is what it is. Everybody needs to do the work to dismantle those things because everyone's beautiful, everyone's sexy, everyone, for the most part, has intimate desires and intimate needs and has the right to get those needs met without judgment, without prejudice, without discrimination, without, oh, well, you're in a wheelchair. No, who cares? It doesn't matter. Like, I know five positions that you can do in a wheelchair and only in a wheelchair. So technically, you could say that wheelchair sex is actually kind of a leg up in a way. Like, it's pretty awesome. Like, it blows my mind the internal prejudices that people have. And they're very hesitant to acknowledge and call those out because some prejudices are easier to acknowledge, like, oh, hey, I grew up in the deep south and there's probably some racial things I need to unpack that my family carried. Or it's possible to say, hey, I was a Mormon, I have religious trauma, should probably go to therapy for that. Acknowledging how we feel about disabled folk in this country is something that a lot of people aren't ready to face yet. They're not there yet emotionally. They're not there just in terms of maturity. They're just, they can't even begin to conceptualize that. Most people are struggling simply with the idea of consensual dating. we don't even have that down as a society, let alone how do we navigate having sex with somebody and then doing an assisted transfer from a chair onto the bed so you can have sex. Like,
Right.
general society is just not there yet.
Right.
It's a
Right.
shame.
No.
We need to get there. And we also need to recognize where we are and that in the real time right now, people have intimate needs and they deserve to have access to getting those needs met.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We are running up on that beautiful hour. This has been a great conversation.
It
Alice.
has. It has been so much fun chatting with you.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
Oh, gosh. I actually can't think of anything in the moment. Nothing in particular strikes me.
That's okay. That's okay. Because we're going to have an after show. And just so everybody knows, we're going to have an after show. And Alice had a morning with coffee with Alice. And I tuned into that. Very, very good show. Talking about dungeon fantasies. You brought up fire kink.
Yes, and fireplay.
Fireplay, yes. I have questions. So for the after show that you can get on Patreon, that is what we're going to go into that discussion with because I have questions. So thank you for coming today. I appreciate you being here. This has been a very, very good topic of discussion. I have learned a lot. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you so, so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So everyone, remember, be kind, be happy, and may good things come your way. Thank you.